Welcome to the Heartbeat Podcast, your trusted source for the latest breakthroughs and insights in cardiology. Here, we uncover the science behind every beat, bringing you cutting-edge research, expert discussions, and innovative approaches to heart health. Whether you're a medical professional, a curious learner, or someone passionate about understanding the heart's complexities, you're in the right place. So let's dive into today's episode and explore the pulse of modern cardiology together.
Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today, we're looking at blood pressure targets, specifically for people with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, this should be interesting.
It is. We're looking at a brand new study. Just came out like November 16th new.
Hot off the presses.
Right. And get this, it's from the New England Journal of Medicine, so you know it's legit.
Definitely a big one.
And it's making waves because it's actually challenging current medical guidelines.
Yeah, this is big for anyone with type 2 diabetes. Could really change how their health is managed.
Exactly. So the big question is a lower blood pressure target better? You know, for preventing heart attacks, strokes, all those scary things.
Your big question, yeah.
Well, this study, it was huge EE, over 12,800 participants, all in China.
Wow.
And all of them, of course, had type 2 diabetes. And they were all considered at increased risk for cardiovascular disease.
Okay, so they're already in a high-risk category.
Right. So they take all these participants and they split them into two groups.
Two groups, sorry.
One group, they aimed for a systolic blood pressure under a 120.
Systolic, that's the top number, right?
Uh-huh. And the other group, they aimed for under 140, which, you know, that's the current standard recommendation.
Right. That's a pretty significant difference between the two targets.
It is. So they followed these folks for a while, like over 4 years on average.
Okay, so long enough to see some real results.
Exactly. And the results, well, they were pretty impressive.
Yeah? What'd they find?
The group with that lower target, remember, under 120.
Yeah, the intensive treatment group, they called it.
Right. They had a 21% lower risk.
21%. Wow, that's significant.
Mm-hmm.
For those major cardiovascular events we talked about.
Yep. Heart attack, stroke, heart failure, even death from cardiovascular causes.
That's pretty remarkable. But I'm sure some people are thinking, wait, isn't lowering blood pressure too much dangerous?
Oh, absolutely. That's a valid concern. And you know what? The researchers thought so too, so they kept a close eye on that.
Okay, good. So what happened? Any problems?
Well, they did notice something. The intensive treatment group did have a slightly higher rate of, well, what they call a symptomatic hypotension, basically feeling faint or lightheaded.
Makes sense. That can happen with lower blood pressure. But was it serious?
That's the thing. No, not really. The rates of any serious side effects were actually the same between the two groups.
So nothing too scary?
Nope. And they also, they were really careful about potassium levels because, you know, some blood pressure meds can mess with that.
Right. Got to keep an eye on those electrolytes.
But good news there, too. No big differences between the groups in terms of potassium issues.
So far, so good. Sounds pretty promising. But didn't an older study, the Accord trial, find different results?
You're totally right. And that's what makes this new research so interesting. It kind of contradicts what Accord found.
Huh. So what's different this time around?
Well, there are a few key differences. For one, this new study was much bigger. Over 12,800 participants, remember?
Right. Way bigger than Accord.
And that means it had more statistical power. So it's less likely to miss a real effect, even a small one.
Gotcha. Bigger study, more reliable results. But there was also something about how they managed blood sugar in this study, right?
Exactly. In this one, they made sure that everyone, both groups, got the best possible diabetes management, standardized glucose control for all.
Interesting. Why was that so important?
Well, in Accord, they were actually testing different diabetes treatments at the same time. So it's possible that could have messed things up a bit. Like, imagine trying to bake a cake.
Oh, yeah.
And you're changing like 3 ingredients at once. It's hard to know which one made the cake rise, you know?
Yeah, I see your point. Too many variables.
Right. So in this new study, they kept the cake recipe consistent for diabetes, so they could really zero in on the effects of the blood pressure targets alone.
Smart move. Isolate the variable. So, bottom line, what does this all mean for someone listening who has type 2 diabetes?
That's the big question, right? And it's one we'll definitely get into more after a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, so we're back. And we've seen that aiming for a lower blood pressure target could be a real game changer. But I kind of want to know, like, what's actually happening in the body? How does blood pressure actually affect your heart and all that?
Well, think of it this way. Your blood vessels, they're like a network of highways.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Crisscrossing your body, delivering blood everywhere.
Right.
And high blood pressure, That's like constant traffic jams on those highways, just putting tons of stress on the walls of those blood vessels.
Oh, I see.
So over time, they can get damaged, they can narrow. It's not good.
So it's not just like one sudden blockage, it's more like wear and tear over time.
Exactly. And, for folks with type 2 diabetes, their blood vessels are already more vulnerable because of the high blood sugar over time, right?
Right.
So having high blood pressure on top of that is like adding potholes to those traffic jammed highways. Oof, double whammy. So we got to be really careful about managing both, huh?
Absolutely. Diabetes and high blood pressure, they're a dangerous combo. This study really makes that clear. Got to protect those blood vessels.
Now, the study didn't just lump all cardiovascular problems together, right?
No. They looked at specific events like stroke, heart attack, those kinds of things.
Did the lower blood pressure target, did it make a bigger difference for some events than others?
It did, actually. They saw improvements across the board, but the biggest difference was with stroke.
Stroke, huh?
Yeah. The intensive treatment group. Way lower risk of stroke compared to the standard group.
Makes sense. Blocking those highways in the brain, that's a stroke, right?
Exactly. But it's interesting. The heart attack rates, they weren't that different between the groups.
Really? Why not? I thought lower blood pressure would protect the heart too.
You'd think, right. But it seems like other factors are more important for heart attack risk.
Like what?
Oh, cholesterol levels, lifestyle, maybe even genetics. It's complicated.
So lowering blood pressure is important, but it's not the whole story.
Exactly. It's just one piece of the puzzle. Got to look at the whole picture.
So where does this study fit in with, everything else we know about blood pressure targets? Is this like a radical new idea?
Well, it's definitely shaking things up a bit.
Yeah.
For a long time, the advice was, keep your blood pressure below 140, especially if you have diabetes.
Right.
But more recently, research has started to question that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some studies have suggested that going even lower, like this study did, might be better, especially for folks who are already at high risk.
So this new study is basically confirming that?
It's adding more evidence for sure.
Right.
At least for people with type 2 diabetes who are already high risk.
Okay. So not like a total overhaul of the guidelines, but definitely a shift in thinking.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
A push towards lower targets.
So if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, this all sounds good, but what do I DO? What's the first step?
Talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
Seriously. Show them this study. Tell them your concerns. Ask if aiming for a lower target might be right for you.
Because everyone's different, right?
Absolutely. Age, other health conditions, lifestyle, it all matters.
Got to find that balance, right? Benefits versus risks.
Exactly. And that's a conversation to have with your doctor. They know your whole situation.
You know what I think is so cool? We can talk about research like this so soon after it comes out.
I know, right? It's amazing.
The world of medicine moves so fast.
It does. And that's why it's so important to stay informed. Be involved in your own health.
The more you know, the better choices you can make. Right?
Exactly. Speaking of, there's something I've been wondering about.
What's that?
This study, they followed people for about 4 years. What about the long-term effects? Like what happens if you keep your blood pressure that low for decades?
That's a good question.
Yeah, this study couldn't really answer that. We need more research on that.
We need the long game, huh? Not just the short-term results.
Exactly. What works for a few years might not work forever.
Right. So much we still don't know.
That's science, though, right? Always evolving.
And on that note, we're going to switch gears a bit and look at one more interesting aspect of this study. Stay with us. We're back. And one thing that's really sticking with me about this whole blood pressure thing is it's not just about medication, is it?
No, not at all. It's really about taking control of your own health, being proactive.
Yeah, exactly. Like knowing the risks and taking those numbers seriously, those blood pressure readings.
Absolutely. And it starts with something so simple, really. Just getting your blood pressure checked regularly, even if you feel fine.
Yeah, because it's called the silent killer for a reason, right?
Exactly. You could have high blood pressure and not even realize it.
Yeah.
Until it's too late.
Yikes. Scary thought. So hopefully this study will encourage people to get screened more often.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Catch it early, And it's not just about screening. This study might also get people thinking about lifestyle changes.
Oh, right. Like what kind of things?
Well, there's the usual suspects. Eating a heart-healthy diet, getting some exercise, managing stress, all that good stuff.
Yeah, those are all things we can actually control. To some extent, anyway.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for your health, not just relying on pills.
Right. Right. So medication can be helpful, obviously, but it works best when you've got that healthy lifestyle foundation already in place.
That's the ideal scenario for sure. Medication as a support, not the only solution.
Two-pronged approach. Love it. Now, we've talked a lot about the good stuff, the potential benefits, but is it fair to say there's still some unanswered questions here?
Oh, absolutely. One study can't answer everything, right?
Yeah.
And there are always limitations.
Like, this study was done in China. Can we assume the results would be the same, for people in other parts of the world?
That's a good point. Different populations, different genetics, different lifestyles. It could all play a role.
And we still need more research on the long-term effects, right? Like, what happens if you keep your blood pressure that low for decades? We don't really know.
All right, that's a big one. We need that long-term data to really see the full picture.
So, lots more to learn. But hey, that's science, right?
It is. Always more to discover. Always evolving.
Makes it exciting. Well, I think we've covered a lot today. The study design, the findings, what it all means for people with type 2 diabetes. It's been a great deep dive.
I agree. Lots to think about.
Definitely. And hopefully our listeners feel more informed, more empowered to have that conversation with their doctor about their own blood pressure targets.
Exactly. Take control of your health, folks. Knowledge is power.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So until next time, stay curious and keep those blood pressure numbers in check.
Thank you for tuning in to the Heartbeat Podcast, where we uncover the science behind every beat. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform to stay updated with our latest discussions and insights. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, feedback, or questions, and let's continue exploring the pulse of modern cardiology together. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep your heart healthy.